First Coast's most accurate forecast from the First Coast News Weather Team, certified by Weather Rate, sponsored by AC Designs.
Good evening, folks. Welcome in. Hopefully got yourself a good dinner, some good grub, and checking in now on the tropics. I'm sure many of you know we've had two storms out there in the Atlantic, somewhat nearby and just offshore. You got, of course, Hurricane Humberto, which we have continued to track here now for near a week. And then, of course, Hurricane Imelda becoming a hurricane as of 8 p.m. this morning. Category 1 storm, but both of which are off to our east and will continue to move northeastward away from the United States and away from the First Coast. But we are still going to feel at least some level, I don't want to say direct impacts, but coastal impacts here along the First Coast and really much of the eastern seaboard through tonight, through much of Wednesday as well. And then by the time we get to the end of the work weekend and into the weekend, really our impacts will pretty much be completely non-existent at that point. But as of 8 p.m., these are the latest and newest numbers from the National Hurricane Center with that 8 p.m. advisory. Sustained winds in Hurricane Imelda at 85 miles per hour. Moving off to the east-northeast at about 12 miles per hour. Central minimum pressure has remained the same over about the last 4 to 5 hours at 978 millibars. And still 630 miles west-southwest of Bermuda. But it is going to continue to make its way toward the island of Bermuda here, potentially making landfall in Bermuda, or at least greatly impacting them by late Wednesday night and into early Thursday morning, potentially as a pretty strong Category 2 hurricane. So there is the latest forecast cone and latest track from the National Hurricane Center. Now, we go back here quick. You look off to the north, a lot of those clouds continuing to stream northward, up towards Myrtle Beach, the Outer Banks, North Carolina, up towards Virginia and the Mid-Atlantic states. There's a decent amount of wind shear in the upper level flow, not only steering it northeastward, but that wind shear itself pulling a lot of the cloud cover and the moisture further northward up toward, the Mid-Atlantic states and the Carolinas. So just kind of a cool aspect of the storm itself when you look at the satellite imagery and compare it to what is actually physically happening within the atmosphere. That wind shear, of course, pulling just a lot of the cloud shield northward. As for Hurricane Humberto, actually the weaker of the two storms here now, sustained winds at just 80 miles per hour, and Imelda's at 85. You'll notice quickly weakening by the time it gets to tomorrow afternoon. Why is that? Well, we are going to see a little bit of the Fujiwara effect a little bit, where they start to rotate around each other just a hair. I wouldn't call it fully the Fujiwara, but it is going to kind of get absorbed to a certain regard by Imelda. It's not going to create this massive storm, but it's really just going to get swept away in with Imelda. Typically, the stronger storm will kind of dominate that and take over the other one to a certain regard, or at least take over using up the fuel and energy and heat available to it, if that makes sense. So there's an infrared satellite imagery, of course, both providing a lot of heavy rain and thunderstorm and convection activity here this evening, and certainly was earlier in the day today, but thankfully not really impacting anyone in the United States, at least with regards to rainfall and wind. We've had wind gusts locally at about 30, 25 miles per hour. 30, I would say, at the most. But we have seen a lot of coastal impacts. Up towards the Outer Banks, they have had some very rough surf, a significant amount of beach erosion, and we've actually had a couple different videos sent in to our newsroom of the houses, those beach houses, actually getting swept away and falling over there in the Outer Banks from some of the very significant beach erosion that they're currently experiencing, really from both of these storms. Now, one place that does still need to be on high alert, of course, is going to be that island of Bermuda and St. George, the city there, or town, so to speak, on the island of Bermuda. About 65,000 people do actually live on that island, but there is a hurricane warning in place for them. And you'll notice, that forecast cone went right over Bermuda. So Bermuda still going to be impacted by Imelda here over the next 2 days. Back here at home, really just dealing with those coastal impacts. High surf advisory still in place. small craft advisories for all of our marine waters as we continue to still see some quite rough surf, wave heights at the beachhead and along the coastline, about 4 to 6 feet, but out at sea, still could see anywhere from about 7 to 12-foot waves offshore. So still some rough surf, high risk of rip currents across our area beaches. So just keep that in mind if you plan on heading out to any of our beaches here for your Wednesday or even through the end of the week, as it'll take a little bit for some of those beach conditions to slowly and gradually begin to improve. Now, looking ahead in the tropics, I went about 2 to 3 weeks out. So we're looking at October 15th to October 21st, because over about the next week, nothing too major really shown in the tropics, really. We've done a lot with Umberto and Imelda here over this past week. So over the next 7 days, National Hurricane Center doesn't really have anything currently highlighted. Between about October 7th and October 14th, there could potentially be a tropical wave move off the west coast of Africa, but for the time being, most long-range modeling is starting to show that recurving to the north, primarily because we're starting to approach that time of the year where you get these long wave troughs within the upper levels of the atmosphere. And what I mean by that is you'll get these big dips in the jet stream that provide those troughs, that provide those cold fronts sweeping in, that will often bring cooler temperatures to folks who live further northward from us, up across the Great Lakes and upper Midwest and the New England states. Fall-like weather for those folks. Once those big fronts really begin to sweep on in, it really does begin to become difficult for any storm to move off the west coast of Africa, make its way the whole way across the Atlantic, and still impact us without getting swept up by one of those fronts. Is it still possible? Yes, but it typically becomes harder the later in the season you go. Now, climatologically, by the time you get into the middle to latter portions of October, our eyes turn yet again to that Central American gyre, which we will often watch early in the season as well. So that's situated over southern Mexico, right over Central America, and that gyre can sometimes just spin out low pressure systems on either side. There in the Western Caribbean, the Bay of Campeche, or in the Eastern Pacific. And that's when, you could see the chance for a storm to develop. Now, I do want to stress, we have not really tapped into the heat, the moisture, and the energy available to some of these storms in the southern or southwestern Gulf or in the Western Caribbean. So there is plenty of juice available for a storm to develop, and some longer range models are just hinting at the idea that some areas of low pressure show at least the potential for maybe some tropical development by the time we get past that midway point in October and kind of towards the end of October. So a 40% chance of formation possible there, kind of in that darker red highlighted area. So just something we're going to keep close eyes on and tabs on here as we kind of progress into the Halloween month and the month of October, and just kind of monitoring that area. But I do want to stress, at least for the next 7 days, we're looking good. It's just that's really where we're going to start to watch over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks even. Now let's bring it back closer to home. Let's talk about what we're actually seeing outside right now. Still some moisture kind of streaming in from Imelda. It's rather light. We've dealt with a lot of this now for the past 2 days. Some very light, quick moving showers for the most part, making their way on shore and moving inland. Right now, a few spotty showers up towards northern Ware and Pierce counties, but really it's western Duval and north Clay or northwestern Clay that is seeing a little bit of some rain. So really just to the east and southeast of Baldwin, west of Oakleaf, we got a nice little quick moving downpour moving through western or southwestern Duval County, and again, just staying to the northwest of Middleburg and Clay County. Otherwise, not a whole lot of rain in the forecast, and certainly not any thunderstorm activity here tonight. Winds, they really haven't been all that terrible today. Gusts out there this afternoon, we're about 25 miles per hour out there right now. Sustained about anywhere from 5 to 15, a little bit breezier out at Mayport and along the coastline, but honestly, that's not the worst we've seen here over the past couple of weeks. We've actually had stronger wind speeds and wind gusts from some of the nor'easter conditions and those stalled stationary fronts really over about the last 2 or 3 months. And unfortunately, that is actually going to set up again here by the end of the weekend. And in the weekend, we're going to experience that yet again. So I'll touch on that a little bit here later. Long story short, though, winds tonight, winds tomorrow, really not all that terrible. Out of the northeast, 15 to 20, perhaps upwards of 25 miles per hour through your Wednesday, midday, and afternoon. So it's going to be a little bit breezy, but we actually will have some drier air pulled in on the backside of Imelda, especially within the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere. And some of that will also work down to the surface. So that's not only going to allow our morning lows to dip down and cool off a little bit more so just because the air is going to be drier, but it's also really just going to squeeze out any real level of moisture that we have available to any showers tomorrow. So maybe an isolated chance across the southern part of the metro, but really it's going to be southern St. John's, Flagler, and perhaps eastern Putnam County for any rain chances tomorrow. And we actually do pretty desperately need the rain. Drought conditions have really continued to worsen, especially across our inland locations, and specifically for Jacksonville, we've only picked up 2.72 inches of rain, excluding any rainfall that we saw today, which I think we did pick up about 2 or 3/100ths of an inch. But long story short, I mean, 2 3/4 inches really isn't all that much for the month of September when we typically see over 7 inches. And you'll notice there, I mean, we're well over 4.5 inches below average for the entire month, and that's just in Jax. Now, I do know some of our coastal communities, you guys have actually picked up a little bit more so with regards to rainfall, especially St. John's and Flagler counties, thanks to some of the coastal showers that we had earlier in the month, but not everyone saw that. Many of our friends in inland southeast Georgia, out towards the Suwannee, Columbia County, Union, Bradford, Baker County, rather dry. And actually the 9th dry September on record ever in Jacksonville, specifically at the Jacksonville International Airport, again with that 2.72 inches. Even with the rainfall we saw today, still one of the top 10 driest Septembers ever. So the faucet has kind of shut off here, even with all of the tropical systems that we've been tracking, because they've all generally stayed offshore and recurved to the north or northeast. Those tropical rains we climatologically typically see during this time of the year just never really came, and we haven't had a whole lot of diurnal showers. Or what I mean by that is just those daytime sea breeze showers and thunderstorms. The time for that has kind of come and passed. We just really haven't had a whole lot of activity, and certainly won't tomorrow either. This will show. I mean, most of the day, rather dry skies, plenty of sunshine out there. It really won't be until late tomorrow night, and as we transition into Thursday, that we're watching for maybe some showers to move on shore. But again, that's primarily going to be across our more southern areas, Flagler, St. John's, perhaps Putnam County there, by late tomorrow night and into early Thursday morning. Wind-wise, I mentioned the nor'easter conditions returning back to the First Coast by the end of the week and into the weekend. This is just what one model, of course, is trying to show, and these are forecasted wind gusts by Friday evening, perhaps 25 to 30 miles per hour. Saturday and Sunday showing a similar trend, perhaps 35 to even 40 mile per hour wind gusts. I think this probably does overdo it just a little bit, but it gives you a good idea. That stalled stationary front and that kind of nor'easter-like pattern that we've had time and time again here throughout much of the summer and early fall, that is going to set back up. So just expect breezy, windy conditions. I mean, really starting tomorrow, but even more so by Friday and the weekend, but also showers and daily chances for rain moving onshore, sometimes training over the same locations, which could lead to localized flooding, which is kind of ironic. I just talked about how dry it is, right? And you wouldn't think it's able to flood that easily because we do need the rain. But when these showers, if they are heavy, they come quick and fast in these situations. They can drop, a quarter of an inch, a half inch of rain within about 5 or 10 minutes and then quickly move away. But if the same showers move over the exact same spot over and over, that's when you could see some of that localized flooding concern. So is that going to be a major issue or threat this weekend? No, I don't think so, but just going to be something that we're going to watch closely. Perhaps just have that in the back of your mind that if you're running around at all this weekend or even on Friday night, there's going to be the chance for rain. There's going to be the chance, at least for even some heavier training rainfall in a few spots. But at least for your Wednesday, the dry air, the dry skies, and the sunshine stay in place. Temperature is going to be in the low to mid 80s, perhaps maybe just 1 or 2 degrees below average for where we should be on the 1st of October, because today is the last day of September 30th. Let me take a quick drink here. And then we move into the hallowed month. So there's a quick look at kind of your average highs and lows from the start of the month to Halloween there on October 31st. And big drops, actually. We start the month off averages in the mid 80s. By the end of the month, average highs in the upper 70s. You look at the average lows down in the mid 50s. So we don't have a whole lot more with regards to the heat and humidity. Yeah, we're still going to have some warmer days, but some drier, cooler air is eventually going to work its way in from the north, at least typically by the end of the month. Not only that, but we're also continuing to lose daylight pretty substantially. Sunrise tomorrow, 7:20. Sunset tomorrow night, right around about 7:11, 7:12. But every week, you notice we continue to obviously lose a decent amount of daylight. By the middle of October there on the 15th, sunrise just before 7:30, sunset before 7 p.m., and of course, that just continues to lessen and lessen more and more as the month wears on. And we really do lose about 45 to almost 50 minutes of daylight through the entire month of October. So really, I view October as kind of that transitional month in the year. Let's forget about the tropics for a second. It's really when we go from the warmth and the humidity, although you will have a few days like that, by the end of the month, and as you look really closer to Halloween and the start of November, those much shorter days, sunsets are much earlier, sunrise much later into the morning as well, and you're getting some of those cooler mornings, some cooler afternoons even at times. So that transition period from any last gasp of summer to much more fall to even early winter conditions at times, which of course we know winter's really not winter per se for someone who's from the north here. Winters are of course rather mild most of the time across the First Coast. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the moisture, right? And our rain chances. I mentioned the dry air is in place tomorrow. That's why we're going to see sunshine, limited rain chances for your Wednesday. By Thursday, a little bit of a nose sneaking its way back in there from the southeast. That'll primarily bring some showers for areas south of I-10. So along and south of I-10, showers on Thursday, but really even more so by Friday and into the weekend. That stalled front, you can almost see it's pretty much right smack dab in the middle of where those greens are at, pulling in moisture off the Atlantic Ocean and right onto the First Coast. That's why we are expecting onshore moving showers through Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and of course a little bit on Thursday as well. So it'll be a little bit cooler, breezy, winds out of the northeast, 15 to 25 miles per hour, gusts upwards of 30. We'll watch for those showers on Thursday, about 40% coverage area, but by Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're talking about 60% coverage area. So certainly going to be some more scattered showers out there, and that stiff northeast breeze as well. So might be impactful not only for your Friday night plans, heading out to a patio, grabbing yourself a nice dinner, or maybe you're just grilling out there with your family. Also might impact Friday night football. I feel like we kind of lucked out here so far this season. We've had a few Fridays where we've had some rain, but compared to last year, where I feel like it rained almost every single Friday, or at least we had thunderstorms somewhere, besides week one and maybe a little bit last week, we haven't had a whole lot of Friday nights that were truly impacted and deterred with regards to rain. This might be one of those. I'm not going to lock it in just yet, but it certainly looks like we could, at the very least, see some very breezy conditions and some off and on showers kind of moving their way through the area for Friday night football. So this is just a quick look at just some of the games. Our sports team, Chris Porter and Ashley Gonzalez, and of course all of our photographers and folks who go out and grab video and shoot the highlights for these games are going to be out at this coming Friday. And last but not least, of course, our Sideline 2025 Game of the Week between the Decoy Creek Toros and the Beachside Barracudas. That's just a fun word to say, Barracudas. I can't wait for Lewis Turner and I to talk about this tomorrow. But kickoff at 7 o'clock. I mean, yeah, there's going to be some showers around. If you're just looking ahead, perhaps you got your aunties, your uncles coming in to watch some football, to watch the nephews here this weekend, or on Friday, I should say. Make sure they bring a towel, blanket, dry the bleacher off a little bit, because we do expect some of them to be, wet, damp at the very least, with some of those showers around. The lightning risk seems rather low, so that is the good thing. I don't think we'll have lightning delays, but might just be a little bit of a wet, showery Friday night out there for Friday night football. And then looking ahead to Saturday and Sunday, still pretty similar here. And I know I got some time left, but I do actually kind of want to spend a little bit of time on the weekend forecast. I'm going to stay on the football trend here a little bit. We've got Georgia at home playing Kentucky. We've got Florida at home down in the swamp in Gainesville playing number 9 ranked Texas. And we've got Florida State at home in Tallahassee taking on the Miami Hurricanes at 7:30, I believe. I'm pretty sure right here, ABC 25, our First Coast news station. All three of those, are they all going to see rain? No. Georgia, looking good. Sunshine up there in Athens. But both Gainesville and Tallahassee, for the Gators and the Seminoles games, both could see some rain. It's going to be breezy as well for both of those. So if you're heading out to tailgate, just be mindful. You might have some rain and some showers in the forecast. Wouldn't let that deter you from it. I don't think it's going to be a complete washout of a day by any means, but we will just kind of have some off and on showers throughout the weekend for both Gainesville and Tallahassee for those Florida and Florida State fans this weekend. Closer to home here on the First Coast, yes, we're still going to see some showers both days, Saturday and Sunday. Will it be a little bit cooler? Not a whole lot. The wind direction is going to change a little bit, more so out of the east rather than the northeast. But we might have to issue some weather impact alerts for these days just with regards to the overall coverage of rainfall. We had shown that, precipitable water map showing the dark greens kind of coming up toward the First Coast. There could be a decent amount of moisture and rain available within the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere that could produce some hefty totals. So because of that, and just for people who have outdoor plans, even with the football games on Saturday, it could be rather impactful to anything you might have planned outdoors this weekend. So for both Friday night football and for anything that you might have planned Saturday and Sunday, just remember, just write it down already, chance of rain this weekend. Again, I wouldn't cancel any plans yet. I wouldn't stamp it down that it will be a washout or anything, but it's going to be possible. Lightning risk this weekend, as I mentioned on Friday night, seems rather low for the time being. Is it possible? Yes, of course, but we are not expecting widespread thunderstorms. We're expecting scattered showers, off and on showers moving on shore with those northeasterly breezes and winds. There might be a few isolated thunderstorms and rumbles of thunder kind of embedded within those training showers. So just want you to know, be mindful of the lightning risk, but it seems rather low for the weekend. Now to Monday. It's a big one. You got the Jags taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. Monday Night Football over at Everbank. We don't typically get too many night kicks here in the River City by the Sea here in Jacksonville. So got to make the most of it while you can. Of course, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce coming to town. Andy Reid, three-time Super Bowl champions? I don't know. I've lost track because they've won several. Coming to town perhaps. Taylor Swift even going to be here? That would be something if Taylor Swift comes to Jacksonville for the Chiefs and Jags game. That is a story. Not to be sidetracked, but nonetheless, there is going to be the chance for some rain, and I think a slightly better chance for some thunderstorms even on Monday. So if you're taking the day off to tailgate out there, of course, we're going to have live coverage. I believe meteorologist Robert Spetta is planning on heading out over to the tailgating lots and over to Everbank Stadium for our newscast on Monday evening. Just note, there is still going to be that chance for rain, the chance for thunderstorms. I think the overall storm threat and lightning risk will occur prior to the kick. Remember, Monday Night Football doesn't kick off until about 8:30, I think. So the game may have some rain around, but the lightning during tailgating hours leading up to it might be dangerous. So just note, there's the possibility for that. Of course, check back in with us over the next couple of days, and we're going to fine-tune that. But It's going to be a big game between the Jags and the Chiefs. Hopefully, the Jags can continue this winning streak against the Chiefs, who have looked rather vulnerable at times this year. I don't think they're necessarily the Chiefs of old, although they have looked good the last week or two. But maybe if the weather does play a factor, it is more than likely going to be at least a little bit breezy out there, could impact the kicking game just a hair. But if it is raining, certainly might bode well for the Jags, make things a little bit interesting in the turnover department. So let's wrap it up, tie a bow. I've had the 7-day on for a bit. Dry skies, sunshine for your Wednesday tomorrow. Going to be breezy out there. Similar story for Thursday with regards to the wind, but we will have a slightly better chance for some scattered showers, primarily for areas along and south of I-10. A little bit cooler there for your Thursday and Friday. Highs are only going to be in the 80s, low 80s really. So we will have below average temperatures there. Friday night football, we're watching those showers. Similar story for Saturday and Sunday, and of course for the Jags game on Monday. I hope you tune back in though. 4 p.m. tomorrow. Myself, Chief Meteorologist Lewis Turner. Not only are we talking the latest on the tropics, we're talking your latest in local weather. But of course, we need to update you on our football picks from last week, and of course, looking ahead to our football picks this week as well. So hopefully you tune in then. Until though, I'm Meteorologist Ross Mummah. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night, folks. Take care.
Hi, folks. I'm Meteorologist Lewis Turner, working here at First Coast News. We're on your side. Been here since 2010, forecasting the weather for Southeast Georgia.